I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call this meeting of the Fairfield Town Council to order. First order of business is public announcements. There are no public announcements to be read today. However, at this time I would, if the council will indulge me, just have a brief moment of silence in recognition of the anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks. Thank you. We'll move on to the second order of business, public hearings. There are no public hearings scheduled for today. So we'll move on to the third order of business, public comments. Members of the public may speak to the council on any item or reserve the right to speak on a specific item that is on the meeting agenda when the item is addressed. Any member of the public wish to speak? Hold on. Or just at public comments, if you are interested in making public comments.
I don't have any comments at this time, thank you.
Right. So with that, sort of unanimous decision of the public, we will move on to the fourth order of business, reports from staff and committees. Start with the town manager report.
So just want to remind everybody that the school budget referendum vote is tomorrow here at the community center. The polls will be open from 8 to 8, so folks to come in and vote on the school budget. And then I wanted to let you know that I met with, this week, the region's partnership specialist for the U.S. Census. So they met with us at the municipality, and they're meeting with municipalities in the region to try to help with promotion of trying to make sure everyone is counted for the U.S. Census. And one of the things that he had mentioned to me was that from the 2000 census to the 2010 census, the town of Fairfield's participation decreased by 19%. So when you think about the fact that our population numbers and census numbers are tied directly with grants and federal funding and state funding and various different pieces, it is very important that every person be counted. It's statistical data, it's not individual data, so they have some plans to help with making sure that the public is notified, some social media pieces that we can be able to use over the course of the next couple of months, so to make sure folks are really participating in the census for 2020. So that was a good piece. And then also the new phone systems were installed in the remainder of the departments this week. So all the departments are now under the same system, which is really good, and things are going very well. There were a few pieces with the install, which we knew there would be some nuances that needed to be adjusted, but it looks like everything's going to go quite smoothly. So good. It's good.
Very good. Are there any other committees that wish to report at this time?
Economic Community Development Committee did meet on the 3rd. They approved a marketing grant in the amount of $3,000 for Sunset Flowerland. It was for website development and radio advertising. The actual cost of project was $6,658. So the good part about that is that this has been a good project in which we are contributing the max amount for our marketing, which is the $3,000, but we actually leveraged more private dollars than the equal parts public. So that was a good project, and they'll be getting going on that. So it's good.
Any other committees? Seeing none, we will move on to the fifth order of business, which is the consent agenda. These items are considered routine or standard business and therefore will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests prior to consideration of this portion of the agenda, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered sequentially on the agenda. And I don't think I'm going to read that every single time we do this, but as it's the first time, I figured it'd be good to review that. And Councilwoman Busk has actually requested that we remove item 1989 from the consent agenda, and it will be considered under the sixth order of business. So that does actually only leave us one item on the consent agenda for this week, but I think it will help us to demonstrate how this works, that somebody can remove items that are in contention and that we can move the remaining business as a single motion. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. The consent agenda is not subject to debate. So at this time, we'll move directly to a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? Good. That carries unanimously, as it is supposed to do. So with that, we'll move on to the sixth order of business to take action on the following items of business, and we'll begin with item number 1989. Order the town council hereby authorizes the town manager to sign a lease contract agreement with Maine RSA number 1, a subsidiary of US Cellular.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second, and we were sent a copy of the agreement previously, so is there any discussion on this point?
No, went through it and it looked,
Yeah. Was just the verbiage change
Exactly.
from the county, from the Somerset, the Kennett County on it.
right.
Yes.
There were actually quite a few different changes that happened throughout the course of this. There was a bit of go back between myself and the town's attorney and the representatives for US Cellular. There were we received a lease in which it said that the increase was every 5 years for 10% for the lease agreement and not the 2.5 annually that we had agreed to, so that was changed and corrected. We needed some clarification about what happens during for removal, so to make sure the community was protected.
Yeah.
Similar to like what we did with the solar project and what happens when it's done and it's not worth anything anymore and how that all works. There were some adjustments. Originally, they had standard language, as with most contracts, requesting that the municipality carry $1 million liability
Right.
piece. That was decreased to the $400,000 amount. That's the main tort claims piece that municipalities have anyway. And so we sent some stuff back to them, they agreed, and it came back. So Bill, Attorney Lee has reviewed it again since it was returned with all the corrections, and everything appears to be in order, and we seem to be all set for that, so
Good.
it was good.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the consideration of approving this lease? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the lease? Any opposed? Any abstaining? That carries 4-1. The next item of business is item number 19-90, order that the Fairfield Town Council hereby waives the reading of and accepts the minutes as printed or amended from meeting number 19-15 held on August 28th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
So motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? That motion carries. The next item of business is item number 19-91, order that the town council hereby authorizes the town manager to sign the memorandum of understanding with Teamsters Local number 340 to modify Article 9 of the Fairfield Police Department contract to state that an employee will be required to live within 60 minutes of the town police station.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I just have a question. Maybe you can answer it. Last I knew, we were having some troubles coming up with people to fill positions as they came open. Is this going to cause us to have a problem down the road, or should we be fine?
Not just the opposite.
Currently, the contract states 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Oh,
it'd be
okay.
it's just the
30 miles,
opposite.
so it's actually
Okay.
doubled our
Okay.
circumference of a catchment area.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
worried about that.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? That motion carries. Item number 19-92, order that the town council hereby selects voting delegate and alternate voting delegate to represent the town of Fairfield for the October 2nd, 2019 Maine Municipal Association Annual Business Meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so in order to move this, we actually have to have a nomination with a name.
I nominate Mr. Lawrence.
Mr. Lawrence, do you accept your
Yes, yes I
nomination?
do.
Is there a second for the nomination of
No,
Mr.
seconded.
Lawrence? There's a second. All right. Any discussion? And my understanding is, Mr. Lawrence, you intend to attend this
yes.
conference.
Mhm.
All right, excellent. And so with that, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of Mr. Lawrence as the voting delegate? Any opposed? Any abstaining? That motion carries. Are there any nominations for an alternate voting delegate? Seeing no nominations, I will move on to the eighth order of business.
I was going to nominate somebody
Oh, okay.
to coordinate.
Do you accept the nomination?
Yeah, I'll accept the nomination.
Okay. Is there a second to the nomination?
A second.
There's a second. So I guess my question is, are you going to the conference?
Yeah, I can go to the conference. I'm
All
not
right.
doing anything October 2nd.
Well then, excellent. All right, then we actually do have a nomination for an alternate voting delegate. Anybody have anything else to add? Any discussion?
Just simply that we will need to get you registered, so to go, we can take care of that tomorrow. And you'll just want to contact me, let me know if you're going to be there all day, so whether we need to sign you up for the lunch and that kind of stuff.
Sounds good.
All right, excellent. So all in favor of Ms. Chandler as the alternate voting delegate? Any opposed? Any abstaining? One abstention? All right, that passes. Now we'll move on to the eighth order of business, council workshop and other business. Item 1 is to discuss mill rate and use of undesignated fund balance. This is the same information that we had previously and discussed at our last meeting. I think the key piece of information is, of course, that the budget going to referendum tomorrow is in fact the same budget that was proposed to the budget meeting, and so we at least know what that is now.
Yeah.
Any further discussion from anyone?
Do we have to?
Oh, sorry.
So, this is back here as a workshop, of course, because we were not certain exactly what was going to happen with everything with the school budget meeting and what have you. And yes, the numbers that we used for the various scenarios for the tax commitment are the same, because the amount passed at the school budget meeting is the number that we were using. The referendum is tomorrow to vote as to whether or not this is the number that will be going forward, or whether the process starts all over again. As we discussed 2 weeks ago, we have gotten to the point where we need to do a tax commitment, regardless whether or not the budget passes tomorrow or not. Because this number, this $4,658,590, is what was approved at the last budget meeting, that'll be the number that the school will use going forward for billing purposes, because that's the way the law works. And this would be the number that we would use to commit taxes either on Friday or Monday at the very latest. So if the town council chooses to use any funds from the undesignated fund, it does require your vote in order for that to happen. You are the only ones that are allowed to have that authority. Town meeting approved up to $400,000 for the use of the undesignated fund to offset taxes. You had various scenarios that were given to you last meeting, everything from 100 to 200,000 to not using it at all, and those pieces. At this point, with the numbers staying solid, and knowing that we're looking at not just sustainability for this year, next year, and the year after, but because of some of the uncertainties that we do have around state revenue sharing and various different pieces, the safer route for you to go would be the $100,000 from the undesignated fund.
Yep.
We would be able to drop the mill rate half a mil. So that would actually represent a decrease, which is good, because down is always better than up.
Yep.
And go forward. And so what our hope is within the office, the assessor and the tax collector and the treasurer and myself, is that as soon as the results are in for Thursday, we will know what those are. And hopefully, it's not one of those pieces where we're gonna do a commitment and wait and see what the number's going to be. We hopefully will have that number. But we will use this number in order to ensure that tax bills get to go out next week, so that folks can get their taxes paid in a little bit of advance of when the second payment is due by town meeting vote.
Okay, so I make a motion to accept scenario 3.
Second.
And just so that it's very clear, there's a motion and a second for scenario 3, as in the memo that we received last time, which is to use $100,000 from the undesignated fund, which projects a 1/2 increase and an overlay of 1.098%. So is it our intention in moving scenario 3 that we also use the stated percentage for the overlay?
Yes.
Okay. I want to make sure that was clear and that everyone knows what we're voting on. All right, so there's a motion and a second for scenario 3 as described. Is there any discussion?
My only concern with scenario 3 is that it only leaves slightly less than $4,000 worth of wiggle room, assuming that the budget tomorrow doesn't pass with what we're receiving. So
I don't understand what you're talking about.
well, because scenario 3, we spend 100,000 and we get back 103,865.47.
Yeah.
So we have adjustments and abatements
And
every single
material.
year. And if the school budget comes in higher than whatever we're voting on tomorrow, assuming that it doesn't pass, then that could pose a problem for us down the road. That's why I preferred scenario 2 when we were talking about it last meeting.
So, just to answer your question, the amount of overlay that's there is actually very comparable to overlays that we've had in the years past. The thing is that if the school budget does not pass on Thursday, and the number that ultimately passed for the school is higher than the number that we have, that will represent in a completely different scenario of pieces that we will need to do.
Correct.
We will actually have to make adjustments for that in next year's tax commitment. So that's,
Okay.
it is a much larger process than just saying, oh, we didn't raise enough to cover this little bit of extra. There's other things that you have to do for that.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion of the motion to accept scenario 3?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor of accepting scenario 3? Any opposed? Any abstaining? That motion carries. The next item is to discuss Town Council Policy, Article 1, Section 108. This is related to the duties of the town clerk with respect to elections. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
And
And bringing the policy in line with our current practices, some state law references, those sort of pieces.
so just for the peace of mind of us and people watching at home, is our current practice in line with state law with respect to elections?
No,
Okay.
actually, it is not. It's not illegal, but it is in line with state law, but what it is it's not in line with standard practices, because currently, we had various different times set up for different types of elections. So if it was a school election, it started much later in the day. If it was a state or federal election, it started much earlier in the morning.
Right.
And what we're doing is we're aligning it so that all of our elections are consistent.
The
So
same.
that if you live in the town of Fairfield, you know the time that the polls are open is from 8 to 8. Simple. The other piece was that it stated the fact that absentee voting was not available during the hours of 11 a.m. and 12 p.m. Basically, that was the time frame in which the town clerk typically goes to lunch. So we are working on cross-training and those sort of pieces and making it so that absentee voting is available to anyone in town at any point in time that the office is actually open. So there was no restriction on that, or say lunch hours changed, or any, to say that specifically in the middle of the day, you can't absentee vote. So we fixed that. And got that pieces done, and then it also does a slight adjustment to the 2-hour requirement for voter registration, extra hours prior to any election. So the law currently requires that we be open between 5 and 9, and this changes that. Yeah, the hours during the week prior to any election shall be as follows for the purposes of voter registration, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, in accordance with the law, so that we don't have that extra piece. We have been open the last 2 elections for extra hours,
Last 7.5 years. I've
and
had,
no one comes into the building.
Not one person.
No, so
that makes
the town
sense.
council does have the authority to make adjustments to that.
Okay, that makes sense.
So we are there, we are available to folks the entire times that we're open, and the ways in which folks can register to vote now are much different than when voter registration laws were originally written. So this just kind of updates that policy, so
Is
that
there
we can have that.
just a question thing, just looking at the last number of people that voted, would we be better off, I don't know what it costs to have the community center open, but that's a very small amount of people. Couldn't it be done at the town hall instead of the community center?
So
On these
we have folks in the community
offset
center anyway.
elections?
So these smaller elections, so that volume of people in and out of the town office is more disruptive than it being here, simply because of the fact of the no cell phone laws that you have the quiet zones, you have parking, you have, so we don't, sometimes we have off elections, they're not these hours.
Right.
In a standard year, most of our elections are either gonna be June or November.
Presumably a town employee in the town office discussing normal municipal policy could end up running afoul
Of
of
election
electioneering
laws.
laws and
Yeah.
Okay.
whatnot.
entirely
They're
Just
doing their job.
just
Yeah.
curious.
So this is not an item that requires immediate action, correct?
No,
So
does
keep
not
it-
require immediate action. And as a matter of fact, we have some additional administrative policies that are gonna be on your workshop at your next meeting. And then what I would like to do is just, we'll have these all ready and packaged for you, so for approval. The intent will be, if you're agreeable to the wording that's here, it'll stay exactly the way it is. And then this item would go on your consent agenda for your first meeting in October, and you would approve it then. So.
Yes.
So just going back to the late hours, so we put in this draft, instead of doing the 5 to 7 to meet the 2-hour requirement after 5 p.m., we did the 5 to 6. But you can eliminate it entirely, or we can do this 5 to 6. Either way, we have to give notice no matter what, and do an action item on the agenda, on a preceding agenda. Statistically, since I've been here the 7.5 years, we've had well under 10 voters, potentially 5 voters in all those years during the people have come in because I told them we're there to certify petitions or conduct other business that I could take care of myself, but just to let you know, just statistically on that.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, that will go on with the other items that I'd expect we would review at our next meeting, so they can be presented in October. And so with that, we'll move on to the next item, which is to discuss other council business. Mr. Lawrence, do you have any additional business tonight?
I have none.
Okay, Mr. Pachadi?
None other than the 9/11, I spent a lot of time this morning watching the whole scenario again, and it's just pathetic the way that happened, and we've got pay attention to what's going on.
Mhm.
Councilwoman Chandler,
Nothing for me today.
Councilor Rusk,
I'd like to express my condolences to someone that passed away today, from what I understand. That was brought up earlier, was it not?
It didn't pass away today.
Oh, well, I wasn't here last week, so I would like to express my condolences as well, since I was not here at the last meeting. So, to the family of that person,
That would be the Martin family.
the Martin family, I would like to express my sympathies for that, since I
Yeah.
wasn't here at the last meeting. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I have no other business tonight, so unless there's any other business anyone wants to take up at this time, the next regular meeting of the Fairfield Town Council will be on Wednesday, September 25th, 2019. At this time, the council will recess and sign all documents that require the signature of council members. Do I have a motion for a recess?
So moved.
Is a second?
Second.
Motion is a second. If there is no objection, we are in recess.